Imagine a world where there could be a device that you can hold in the palm of your hand which can communicate with 3 billion people instantaneously, which has access to all the world's knowledge. That's not science fiction, and the idea that that isn't going to transform media, I think would be strange.
This digital revolution has caused an extraordinary change. I don't think anyone would want to go back to the old media structure where access to communications and distribution was as managed as it was back then.
I love print, but print is not our future. This transition period, which is going to last at least 5 to 10 years, is going to be extremely difficult.
Not just continual acceleration, but actually a step change. I don't know what that is. If I did know what that is, I'd be doing that, not this.
The next couple of years, what we're going to see is a refocusing on mobile. I think that most media companies are going to have to become mobile media companies if they want to really survive.
First of all, most people began in the news business thinking of the digital revolution as the enemy. I've come to think of it as a friend.
I looked at other industries of other times. I looked at how the railway revolution happened, the printing revolution. And you see a pattern that the disruption typically does not come from within the old rulers of that industry, but disruption comes from the outside.
We're seeing the aggregation of tremendous new technological capabilities, and we've only just begun to explore how they can be used to create good journalism.
Well, what I learned that despite 50 years in the business, I'm running a huge startup company. That's what it feels like.
Everybody in mainstream media is doing digital afterwards.
A lot of people discover their news through their friends, through their family, and journalists on Facebook.
3 years ago, we weren't talking about social as a huge component of the information ecosystem. What does that tell us? 3 years from now, we're going to be talking about something very different again.
Journalists are not the only ones in this situation. Every single industry, I cannot think of a single industry that's not being forced to reorganize, to rethink what they're doing. What differentiates the media is that we have a lot of public airtime to commiserate and to say, oh, look how hard we are being hit by this net thing. No, we're not hit any harder than a local baker.
The newspaper of today and the newspaper of 100 years ago is largely the same, with maybe the exception of color printing.
One of the more recent issues has been the adapting to the tablets, the iPad, and this whole generation. The reader is prepared to pay for it on the devices, on the iPad and similar devices.
I think the race for online media shouldn't be to be the biggest. The race should be to be, on the journalistic side, to be the most influential, and on the business side, to be the most profitable.
I don't believe that paywalls are not an effective part of this. I think they can be.
Paywalls will only work for very few select newspapers in the world.
The model I use for sports might be very different from the model I use for financial information, which may be very different from the model I use for political information.
I do believe that paywalls fight the future.
My own sense is that the media landscape we'll see will be a richer one, but also a more chaotic one.
I don't think that the traditional media companies are going to go away, but I think you're going to see more new media companies come of influence.
Print operators should be very careful not to say the game is over, let's all go digital.
For the first year ever, we saw the Huffington Post win a Pulitzer Prize, right? The Huffington Post didn't exist, launched in 2005, 2004.
A certain percentage of the audience will still want to receive newspapers as they're presently constructed.
Digital, one way or another, over time will replace print.
You're going to see a successful, very successful news company that only lives on mobile.
I do believe that the future of journalism will be better than its past if it's not already there. One of the challenges organizationally is how do we imbue those organizations with a sense of constant innovation? We currently present news to about 1 billion users per week around the globe, right? Connecting users with the latest possible information from a quality source of that information, which of course are news organizations. News organizations, and I don't say this in a critical way, but for 100 years we've worked in a media form that for the most part has not changed. All news organizations really today, if they haven't been, need to rethink how they do things. What's the new definition of the role of an editor versus a reporter in a real-time world? We are increasingly in a world of real-time media. Not everything that funnels through that flow is necessarily accurate or true. So it's not like quality journalism from professional journalists will be less necessary going forward. It won't be. If anything, it'll be more necessary. It is no longer the case where news organizations can simply say, trust us because we are who we are. How do we rebuild trust? To me, it's less about the brand as it is about the individual. I want to know the reporter. What intrigues us is the opportunity to use social networking to help connect you to people who you don't know but maybe would like to know, relating to things that you're interested in. How do we use computational journalism to look at sources of data, government data, and so on, to sift through that information and find anomalies, find instances of wrongdoing? The investigative report of tomorrow is not 15,000 words of narrative about the story, but is actually a persistent investigative report that's written in query strings and fusion tables. We are talking as much about cultural change as we are technological change. It will take time.
Can you imagine in 20 years' time that El País will be a daily in print? It's hard to imagine. Digital First Media is the second largest newspaper company in the United States, 10,000 employees, about $1.4 billion in revenue, and over 18 states, 57 million customers, and about 800 products, print and online, and all of it is in crisis. Almost 3 years ago, starting with one part of the company, we decided to change the business model entirely. Digital first, not digital second after whatever core product, whether it be TV or print. You have to deconstruct your entire business and then reassemble it in a way that will build the future. That will mean that some people will lose their jobs. There are some people who cannot change. Success has gone from here to here, but we live it like this. We are living it like this. And the highs are very good and the lows are depressing. If this content gets networked and shared, then the more networked and shared that it is, the more value it grows. It drives more traffic, and I think that's how that is going to be monetized. We took a bankrupt company and 2 years have increased profit. We have grown its digital revenue more than 4 times, doubled the audience, and lowered the costs. So yeah, I think this is the model that works. I put the digital people in charge of everything. My head of business development only has a digital background. My head of my editor-in-chief is a digital journalist. That's his experience. We have invested and created our own private online exchange where we buy and sell our own inventory and other media company's inventory. We packaged that together for advertisers. This was a business, it's called Ad Taxi, like a taxi cab. This was a business that last year at Digital First Media as an experiment was about $800,000. Nothing, nothing. Right now it's $1.5 million every 3 weeks. In the United States last year, 9% of all ads had no human hand selling them online. It's all algorithm. This year, over 30% of those advertising will be that way, all done by algorithm. And so you need to invest in the technology. From an open journalism perspective, there is nobody better at this than Alan Rusbridger and The Guardian. They are fearless in their experimenting with the crowd, inviting people into the news process. I think Wolfgang Blau's experiment at Zeit online is also remarkable. In the recent past, with Yahoo.com and AOL.com, the sort of first big portals in the United States, we went to them. In the future, information comes to the customer. 25% of our traffic now is coming from social. Technology is 100% of the future.